We all love a good hype train. It's only human nature as we are a tribalistic folk. But we also get bored and then capitalism ensues, and what do you know? You move on to something new. So then you find yourself mindlessly buying something just because. But that doesn't mean it is not okay to genuinely keep liking something from the past. In fact, if you do truly covet whatever scent that is because you genuinely like the scent and you truly have fond memories with it, then I am your biggest fan. More power to you. And maybe, just maybe, you share some of the same feelings for any of the scents that are on this list today. So here are 5 fragrance hype trains from not too long ago that I and maybe you still dig. And if you're not sure, maybe you'll buy the hype after all of this. Roll intro, roll video. Firstly, we have the once ubiquitous Bond No. 9 Bleecker Street. And Bleecker Street does it all. A spring and summer legend known for its upbeat, fruity, and grassy vibes with performance to boot. So we're talking cassis or blackcurrant that smells closer to blueberries to open us up. It's almost candied smelling, very juicy, and you just know it is Bleecker Street when you get this opening. But then you get that violet leaf soon after, and that's how Bleecker Street smells, like the really lush grass lawn that many people love. So all of that is great, we love that, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a kicker, because there is. And it's the price. The retail price just sucks straight up. And as of November 2022, a 100 ml sits at a really healthy $440 US. So you'd figured, that's why it's been slipping in discussion. Not to mention other spring and summer fragrances that have since debuted. But here's the thing, conversely, I actually think that now, more than ever, Bleecker Street is more than ever deserving of the hype. Like, check this out. This is still one of the most, if not the most, crowd-pleasing grass fragrance out there. And most importantly, Bleecker Street is the most widespread it has ever been, discounted on the gray market level. Ask anyone who's been into this fragrance game for a minute now. If they were ever trying to find this stuff back in the day marked down, it was sometimes impossible. So to consistently be able to save almost half off on it in 2022 is definitely a blessing upon a blessing. So hella savings on a beloved spring and summer classic. This is why Bond No. 9 Bleecker Street is still worth the hype. Not bad for a Ralph Lauren purple label homage. Next up, we have from the brand Frapin, arguably the best value of any fragrance on this list. It's 1270. And guys, 1270 just slaps. If you want a high quality, deliciously boozy scent and don't want to break the bank, this one might be for you. Firstly, as far as fruity openings, this one smells super indulgent. The pineapple isn't as juicy and as bright as an Aventus pineapple, but it is just as interesting, supported by some raisins, prunes, dry fruits in general, very deep, very indulgent. Combine that with some warm spices, some honey, some vanilla, and some woods, and 1270 feels like a special occasion in cracking open a premium bottle of cognac from the brand Frapin themselves. So all that sounds fine and dandy, but that begs the question, why has 1270 lost some of its hype? Well, quite frankly, other boozy scents have since come out from other brands that have been more consistent at it, and as a result, this brand kind of gets left in the dust, and thus people also forget about this great stuff. Not to mention the fact that these other newer boozy scents have the performance to boot, which this does not. For real, this thing will definitely dry up in just a few hours if I were to walk in and out of the house in my Canadian winters. And if we're not to just talk about longevity, but if you want projection, you're really not going to get much out of this either. So to a lot of you who I know are performance sluts, I know this doesn't sound very promising at all. So why must I be boosting it this hard? And honestly, it's not just the really high quality blend that you're getting here, a really authentic smelling cognac smell, but also the price as well. The price here just kicks ass. For a fragrance with historically next to no discount presence on the gray market, to still be at 165 USD retail for 100 ml is just absurd. Think about it, that's just $5 more than something with next to no ingenuity, like Bleu de Chanel Parfum for example, despite that thing's quality. And I'm not saying you can't spend a lot of money on really simple stuff, especially if it's really good at being simple, but there's just something about spending just as much and getting a lot more going on as far as scent goes. Again, here you are getting legit inspiration and awesome execution from one of the world's best boozy perfumers, not to mention that this stuff on a retail level is $100 less than mainline Killian's with twice the amount of juice. So with all these things going for it, the performance issues are just a small complaint from me. And if you are that big of a stickler on performance, at least Frapin has tried to rectify this somewhat, and having since released in 2022 1270 Extreme, which I've yet to try for myself. But for now though, for the retail price, I'm definitely still more than enchanted with this right here, and therefore yes, 1270 is more than worth the hype in 2022. Moving on to another scent from yesteryear that still holds up to this day, here we have Timbuktu by L'Artisan. Straight up, Timbuktu is magical and adventurous, but elegant and pleasant at the same time. Opens with a bit of pink berries, or pink pepper rather, a pleasant spiciness that gives way to the main event notes. The first being incense, and here it is a bit green, a bit burnt, but nothing remotely harsh. And then the vetiver, it's just wow, also green and then a bit brisk with what smells like myrrh in the background too. But it's also woody in a soft woods way, which I especially love. So for a fragrance that features sometimes divisive notes like incense, like vetiver, I find it fascinating how Timbuktu does them so smooth in such a way that makes me, someone who is sometimes apprehensive of either of these notes, to want to venture out to wherever smells like this, like I guess Timbuktu itself. And actually in my latest fragrance battle video with Alex, I also commented that Timbuktu specifically smells like a hot desert night. So I love the inspiration, I love the execution, but that begs the question now, with all the positive things I said and all the praise this thing got on YouTube, Base Notes, and Fragrantica over the years, why has the hype on Timbuktu kind of run cold, and why is it deserving of your attention nowadays? Well, for a while now, the most resonant trends in either men's or unisex perfumery has either been fresh or sweet, or hell, an outlier breakout scent could be both fresh and sweet. Or it could be none of the above, but it still had something unique about it that accentuated some sort of compliment factor. So that's just it. Timbuktu has none of those things. That smooth yet adventurous vibe is no longer good enough for people to just jump into. And to be honest, I'm not resentful of that whatsoever, because I kind of look at it like more for me. But to anyone remotely interested in a scent like this, I implore you, try this, try this, try this. I think it's that divine, and I do think it's up for a good deal still retail wise for around the same price as a high-end designer if you were going the 100 ml route. And yes, I do wish that Timbuktu had a little bit more presence on a discount level as far as gray market goes, but you can't win them all. Hey guys, hope you've been enjoying the show, but just a quick aside before we move on to the next scent. If you have been in the fragrance game for quite some time now, whether it is a really long time or not that long at all, what is one scent that no longer has a certain level of hype that once had before that you still feel is deserving of the hype now? I'm just genuinely wondering what I may have missed, so please let me know in the comments. Don't worry, I read all of them. Who knows though, maybe it's one of the scents I already mentioned, and or there's a couple more I've yet to get through, so stay tuned. Thanks again. Now moving on to the once absolutely beloved Penhaligon Sartorial. Sartorial is a quintessential Penhaligon scent featuring aspects of their traditional barbershop fougere style, but dressing it up in a way that's more distinguished than a simple cologne, as the stuff is specifically inspired by a luxury Savile Row tailor shop. So to accomplish that, not only do you have lavender, you have other metallic notes, and even something aldehydic at the top, but then you also got that warmth of cardamom, leather, tonka, and even a bit of beeswax and honey. So to me, this stuff totally comes off as a dapper, warm, brown kind of suit for the fall. So very sartorial, just like the name, and I do feel like this feeling was something totally lauded within the community at some point, as it was talked about on YouTube and forums for years, but then all of a sudden, it just kind of came and went. So what happened? What happened to the hype? I'll say this, in comparison to other scents on this list, I do think that there's a more straightforward reason and a more tragic reason to why the hype on Sartorial no longer exists. And to be fair, it's not like the retail price has ever sucked, because now it tops off at around $165 US for a 100 mLs, which is pretty fair if you are to put this up against high-end designers, which top off at around that price, but again, no one seems to bat an eye at that on YouTube. But here it is, this is why we are no longer talking about this stuff as prominently. It's because we can no longer get it for half off like we were able to on the gray market 4 years ago. Yes, I said half off. That's how hard these things were liquidating from actual points of sales. So then when those official points of sales were doing so bad, and now there's less Penhaligon stockists around as a result, because Penhaligon's largely pulled out of a lot of these department stores, that's why this stock has largely dried up on the gray market. There was simply less stockists within the continent to buy liquidated stock from. And because the community largely wants to not only get an awesome niche scent, but also a really good deal at the same time, no one could stomach buying this stuff at retail, even if retail is fair in comparison to other niche brands. But here I am, since this retail is still fair-ish, I implore you to check this out if you still can. If you still can and want, because this scent is still so aromatically awesome. You're gonna love the nuances of metal, beeswax, honey, leather, whatever makes you feel so dapper, and again, like I mentioned earlier, a brown suit. I love that feeling, and for around this price point, I still can't find something else that makes me feel such a way. So that's why the hype train is still worth it for me. I hope it's still worth it for you, but don't get me wrong, I still feel your pain in not being able to cop this no longer at such a really good deal. Anyway, moving on to cap us all off, saving one of the best for last here from good old Serge Lutens, it's Chergui. Chergui to me was the biggest mainstay on anyone's autumn or fall list back then, and was an awesome value darling on base notes and for Granica specifically. Simply put, it's a very cozy honey tobacco scent with resinous and smoky nuances like amber and incense. And on top of that, that interesting hay note gave it a nice, slightly green edge. And it was that note that I often enjoyed trying to hunt down with my own nose. So I love Chergui, almost every aspect of it, conventional or quirky, and when you throw in the price, it just seems like a home run. Like $75 US on the gray market is around half off overall, which is around the same price again of mid-tier designers. But here of course you do get a true work of art, both in quality and scent. And it's still super wearable, so that begs the question, why is Chergui no longer the hype train it once was? Well, simply put, more crowd-pleasing tobaccos and or warmer scents in general just started popping up everywhere. Ones that were more straightforward and took less risk in not using potentially divisive notes like Chergui does hay here, for example. So if you're ever wondering if this was true, yes, companies like to use a lot of R&D or research and development to engineer scents and market them in a way that are most conducive to sales. That is what the art has evolved into or devolved into depending on who you ask. But the real reason to why I still think that Chergui is still worth hype is because of that very nostalgic quirkiness that some people are shying away from. Like altogether, I really do feel like it's uniquely something, and there's something to be said for that. Again, I like the nuance of the hay note, making this not so syrupy on my skin, because trust me, this is already sweet enough. So yeah, I don't mind a more nuanced approach to an already straightforward genre in honeyed tobaccos. And if you could also handle a minor twist in a conventionally crowd-pleasing genre for a scent that has been discounted for all these years, then I'll presume that Chergui is still worth the hype for you as well. But there it is, folks. Thank you for sticking around this long. Hope now you understand why certain frags have fallen off and why they are still hopefully worth the hype and your attention. But if there's anything else I missed, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, I guess I will catch you next time. So like the video if you enjoyed this, and if you really enjoyed this, please subscribe as well. And until that next one, take care for now. Peace out. Bye. My name is Manny. Wear your fragrances.